welcome to the Kickass Midlife Method podcast. I'm joined by some women from the Kickass community, and tonight we're talking about how you can master healthy body composition in menopause through the power of meso-cycling. So we're going to dive into that. So what we're gonna cover here is what mesocycling is in terms of macros and calories, why it's really suitable for midlife women in particular, the benefits and potential drawbacks, because there are some drawbacks and there are some people I wouldn't recommend it for, and for some people it's not recommended until later on in your kind of health journey. So, and also I'm discussing it now because got lots of people. We're recording this in the middle of June. Lots of people going away or away already, talking about what to do to maintain healthy eating in the summer. So it's a good thing to dive into now. So what the hell is it? So mesocycling mainly means, and meso is like a kind of means short phases. So in running terms, if I'm coaching people for run training or sports specific things, you have macro cycles, these big cycles, and then within that you have these little mesocycles which take people to particular events. It's exactly the same when it comes to calories, for instance. So some of you in the Kick-Ass community just follow my recipes. Some of you are on maintenance because actually maintenance, you are actually losing weight, which just shows that actually possibly you were overeating quite a lot before. And then for some people, once you get more accustomed to tracking and your understanding of macros, then meso macro cycling can be really beneficial. So what it means basically is that you can focus different periods of time to more of a restriction phase where you're looking to lose body fat. Then you can go into a maintenance phase. And then also, which blows some people's mind, women's mind in particular. So I've had a couple of people do this. You go into a muscle building phase, and the muscle building phase is actually when you increase your number of calories. And then you sometimes have a phase where you don't track anything at all because you just need a rest from it. And understanding that is really liberating because it will help you to escape that yo-yo dieting. It will help you to escape that fear that you have when you go on holiday that you're gonna lose everything and you're gonna come back and have to go back to square one again. So this is why it can be really liberating. So I'm just going to dive a little bit into this more now. So give me a 2 in the chat if any of you have heard of anything like this before. Does that like kind of ring any bells at all for you? Or a 3 if no, if it doesn't ring any bells at all. So 2 if you have, 3 if you've never heard of it. Yeah, it's a bit of a mix, actually. It's a bit of a mix. Um, so let's dive in. So, firstly, why it's really good in midlife, particularly, I think, is that, as I was saying, it puts you in control. So you feel like once you've mastered just the basis of like actually what makes a good source of protein and nourishing healthy fat and nourishing carbohydrates, slow release. Once you've mastered that, then coming into this phase puts you just more in control rather than calorie counting and tracking being something that is restrictive. It actually is quite liberating. It enables you to maintain in stressful life stages. So we're all in that life stage where we've either got sometimes kids coming back from university with their own issues, we've got aging parents, which causes that additional emotional stress and time stress. We're at a certain point in our career where either we're quite senior or we're quite senior and thinking, now what the hell? I don't really want to do this anymore. So there's lots of stressful life stages, and sometimes tracking into a maintenance phase just enables you to kind of bridge those times of your life when actually working to restrict is just not quite suitable. Anyway, as we've said before, calorie restriction is not suitable for midlife women for long periods of time because it just drives you into a more cortisol phase and it can risk you losing muscle, which what we don't want to do. So only doing it for short periods of time where you're specifically targeting a body fat loss stage can be really useful for a short period of time. You can match your nutrition to your energy. So for instance, when you are at a certain phase, when you've lost X amount of body fat and actually we're looking to load more muscle, then you would actually increase your energy. So how much you're taking on in order to grow muscle. Similarly, I've got some people in the Kickass community who are training for 70.3 Ironman and an endurance cycling event, that over 5 days cycling to London, cycling to Edinburgh, sorry, back to London and back to Edinburgh in under 5 days. So they need to obviously increase their nutrition to go way over what their kind of maintenance would be in order to fuel that. And then it also is really useful to avoid burnout and plateaus. So for instance, I've got a client who's not in this, she's in the group, but she's not on the call today, who we took her off tracking completely. She didn't do anything for a kind of about 4 weeks, actually. She panicked, of course, and when she came back, it was absolutely fine. Just because she just needed something else at that time. But it's really important, as I said, that you do this kind of thing. You enter into this once you've established a foundation phase of understanding about macros. You've got the structures in place and the processes, which I go on about a lot before you do this thing, because you can't just set it and then forget it. You've got to have that basic understanding of portions, again, as I said, what makes a low glycemic index carbohydrate and why physiologically in midlife that's important for us. So just to recap on that, those high glycemic index foods are those foods that release sugars into your bloodstream really, really quickly. And in midlife, because of resistance to insulin, we aren't as well able to process that. So it can lead to more fat accumulation. That's why slow release carbohydrates, low glycemic index ones are better. So you've got to have an understanding of that first before we go into like meso-cycling, which is the next phase on. Same with lean protein. You can't go into it if you're still thinking that a lean source of protein equates to a sausage. It's got to be that understanding's got to come first and having the greens. You've got to understand not priority, I should change that, the focus, protein focus, that under eating protein for your body size, shape, and goals will totally derail your progress. And then this is a big one, actually, trusting the maintenance phase. We have all grown up in an era of not great around diet. So when you say to anyone about going into a maintenance phase, people get a bit scared and think, "Oh my God, how am I gonna handle that? I just want to keep losing body fat. I've got to cut." You haven't. And then there's the other flip side of also where I will sometimes say to people, "I want you to eat like 500 calories over what you think you need," and women typically really freak out about that. And yes, you put on weight, but we're not looking at weight, we're looking at body composition. And what we're looking at in those phases is, are you putting on more muscle and decreasing fat? And again, that phase is a small phase, and then we go back into a smaller meso cycle of restriction again. But all of it, as with anything in the Kickass Midlife Method, is about consistency. Consistency with everything you do, your processes, your structure, and with each phase. You can't go into a kind of maintenance phase that suddenly turns into a eating over. You can't go into a restriction phase that actually is just a maintenance phase, because otherwise it doesn't work. So you've got to be a little bit more on it when it comes to doing this kind of thing. And this is why it works really well for summer, when you're on summer holidays. So rather than going away on holiday and having that all or nothing mindset where you go, well, I'm not going to be able to stick to anything, a nourishing way of eating. So you know what? I'm just going to eat every ice cream that I can see. I'm going to have 2 gelatos on top of a cone. I'm going to have all the pasta in Italy, and then I'm going to worry about it in September. Instead, it just gives you that thing, right? I'm going away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I'm going to go into my maintenance phase, or I'm just not going to track. When I get back, I'm totally in control. So you're in control and you're planning it as a strategy rather than feeling like food is controlling you and you've lost all sense of control. So you keep your results stable without obsessing about stuff. And it just helps you to think about your summer holiday as no different than any other time, apart from the fact that actually, I think when you're on summer holidays and abroad, you often have access to better food. You have a bit more time to enjoy it, a bit more time to reflect on what you're eating, not rushing it. So therefore, I actually think summer holidays are a perfect time to just eat and enjoy that kind of food, nourishing food even more. So I just thought I'd show this. Ignore the graph on the left because that's just something that my presentation threw up, which I can't get rid of. And this paragraph on the right is one of my clients who's been, as you can see, has been training with me for a year now. So you can see with over a year graph, what it gives you is this kind of real sense of reassurance in the process. So you can see here that when she went on holiday, there's an increase, and when she came back, it slowly decreased. Another holiday went up, no problem. She went back down again. December, Christmas season went up, no problem. Maintain, went back down again. This is a phase where she's just had been really busy at work and she didn't track, and now the downward trajectory is down. So you can see overall, I hope that kind of, give me a 4 if that gives you a sense of reassurance, seeing a whole year's graph of someone where you think, actually, if I just follow the process, I don't need to panic. It will work. There's no kind of like, because what typically happens is you come back from holiday, you stand on the scales, or you try and put that bit of clothing on that that work bit of clothing. You're like, oh my God, I'm useless. I failed. I give up. Where actually you're just in control of it all the time. You just have to remember that as long as you keep tracking this in your graph in the app, you have this amazing pattern where you can just get that sense of reassurance that all it is getting back to the process. And then let's talking about taking it a bit more into the holiday phase of how do you handle if we're going on to a maintenance phase when you go on holiday, or you decide you don't want to track at all, you just want to do it by eye. This is the way you do it. You just think about making sure that on every plate of food, you have those 3 macros. So even if you are going to have an ice cream, you're probably going to have more alcohol. At least if you keep these things consistent, that every plate or dish of food from breakfast to dinner has your lean source of protein, your slow release carbohydrates as much as possible, and your healthy fats. So for instance, in Greece, your souvlaki with a Greek salad, you've got your greens, you've got your essential fatty acids, you've got your lean source of protein as much as possible. France, try not to go mad on the cheese. Again, your lean sources of protein, loads of fish, depending, and the fruit and vegetables is amazing in France as well. And then, of course, Italy. Italy can be very tempting because they have obviously amazing pasta, but they also have amazing vegetables and amazing seafood. So obviously, when you're hitting Italy, you are likely to have pasta, but do you need pasta for 7 days for 3 meals? And actually, in Italy, obviously their first dish is a really small plate of pasta. So actually, it's better than a main meal because that's their I don't know what it's called, their primi something or other, and then you go on to the main course. So it's just about remembering those things, keeping in, and I've just pulled those particular countries because that's where some people in the community are at the moment, Greece, France, and Italy. But you can, once you understand your macros, you can go into any restaurant, look at the menu, and just think, okay, what's going to give me the best mix of those macros and choose accordingly. And it's not like you're hard done by. It's not like any of this food is disgusting and you think, oh, I can't eat that. I mean, it's delicious food. You're not missing out. You're actually, benefiting. So just remember that you start if you look at a restaurant menu or you're cooking and you've got a villa or something like that, just think I'm going to start with the protein source on my plate. Think about that, then think about what the greens are, then think about the healthy fats. So start with the protein first, making sure you've got that focus first. and then build out from that on your plate or your dish. Same thing for breakfast, you know. Start with the protein, add your greens or your fruits. Think about what your healthy fats are on that too. So, what to do next for this? As I say, you've got to lay the foundations first. So, for some of these people on this call, this is not suitable yet, but it's something to think about. But certainly, the summer aspect of it in terms of maintenance could be something. And for some of you, I would cycle you onto this at some point, but maybe not yet. Some of you have already talked to about this, and I'm suggesting you do more of a restriction phase for 2 weeks. But most of all, in that summer holiday phase, when you're away, if you're not tracking and you don't want to track, which I totally understand, I wouldn't track on holiday. I'd be focusing on just the overall sense of your macros and your movement. So you keep moving when you're on holiday. For me, I love being on holiday because it gives me a little bit more time to go and do my exercise and not have to rush back for work and have a long leisurely breakfast and you know it's nicer than having to do exercise normally when you're at work all the time. So it's not about skipping the exercise because actually it's a really nice thing to do and makes you feel better. So thanks for joining. If you're watching this afterwards or listening to it on a podcast, then you can comment Miso and for your free guide to how to cycle your macros. And now for those people here, I'm just going to open it up to questions. This bit won't be recorded or shared anywhere, so you can be totally free to just ask questions. So if you unmute and ask your question, just so it's a bit friendlier for me and for everyone else to hear a real voice, and just come on and ask. So anyone got any questions? If you really don't want to come on, I'm fine. You can ask in the chat. Anyone, does that all make sense? Is it something that you would, I mean, give me a 5 in the chat if you think it'd be something that you'd actually like to do, and a 6 if you think, oh, I don't know, that sounds too complicated. Yeah. 5. Anyone else? That's how many of there are on this call? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on the call. I've got 3 responses. Give me a 5. Yeah, definitely with guidance. Particularly when you're doing this first off, because it does require. I mean, the beauty of it as even a 1 week thing is it allows you to kind of try it. And for lots of you, I wouldn't ever cut by loads. You know, I'd cut by a little bit because it's just a case of because what happens often because of our diet history, unfortunately, for every woman on this call. You talk about restriction, and most people immediately think, "Oh, I've got to restrict loads," and then what it does is make you think, you cut too much often." And what that often ends up meaning is that you snack loads. So, you know, it's got to be a real kind of conscious, empowered, intelligent way of restricting. And so I always only do it by a little bit at a time, so we don't fall into that trap of like the 1980s to the early 2000s where it was all just like cut and not eating anything apart from a lettuce leaf and a tin a jar sorry a tub of cottage cheese. um so any other questions? It could be not around this topic, it could be something else. And who is going on holiday soon? Who's going on holiday and who's not going to track? Who thinks they're going to just work on, yeah, Caroline. Where are you off to, Caroline? There you go.
Italy for
Oh,
nine
Italy.
days at the
There you
end
go.
of July.
And
I
where,
don't like pasta or pizza, so I should be all right.
Italy should be all right. And which part of Italy?
Naples, Sorrento, Pompeii.
Okay, great, great. Well, Naples actually is the birthplace of pizza, I think, actually. And I think their birthplace of pizza is pizza. Oh yeah, Lindsay, you'd know this, isn't it? Naples, potato on a pizza. That's the pizza from Naples. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, full on fast release carbohydrates. Anita, were you going to ask anything?
No, I said full of carbs. I was in Italy and I wasn't impressed by the pizza. I was in Lake Como and I thought I'd make a better pizza at home.
Yeah, yeah. And Lake Como, I bet that was expensive too. Lake
Yeah,
Como, their pizzas.
ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Any other questions? It could be about something else unrelated to this. If you've got a question about being in what your journey at the moment.
Um,
No? All good? So if you're all good, I'll let you all go. So I hope this was useful for you. Obviously, often questions arise after you've got off the call. So if they do, just put it in the main group. Think about something that you will take away from this, because I'm going to ask you tomorrow to share it in the group.